Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Kim, who's on the
I was getting ready to leave.
Hey.
I'm here for the second harvest. Sports and a couple of conflicts, so we'll get a couple.
All right. Welcome to the March 12th, 2024 Newport Beach City Council meeting study session. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
All right, let's start with item number 1, clarification of items on the consent calendar. Councilmember Clayman.
Yes, thank you. For agenda item number 5, I need to acknowledge that I sit on the board of the Newport Beach Foundation.
Okay. Councilmember Blum.
None.
Councilmember Avery.
None.
Councilmember Weigand.
I do not.
Councilmember Grant.
None.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Same as Councilwoman Kleiman. Item number 5, I serve on the board of the Newport Beach Foundation.
Got it. All right. Let's move into item number 2, certificate of recognition to the Blue Bin Group. So we have the Blue Bin Group here. I hate to ask you, you don't have to, but if you would like to come up to the mic. I'm offering to not have her do it.
Okay.
So, real quick, I was hoping you could explain a little bit more about the group, but the reason we're here is because you actually came and talked to us during public comment during the city council meeting, suggested something, and tell us what happened afterward.
Yes, so I came a couple months ago to propose a citywide education campaign to help people in the city understand a little bit more about what the proper way to recycle is. And over the next couple months, I met with some representatives of CR&R Recycling, and we created a social media campaign with some of the design members of Newport Beach, and we put together a 12-week recycling campaign that was pretty successful.
And then, John, do we have the PowerPoint that we could show a couple? Yeah. Oh, I should probably mention, and this is, you're also over at Sage Hill School.
Yes.
Yeah, good, all right. So, let's go back just one. So this was, so the city of Newport Beach partnered up and made sure that we were pushing out our own posts as well. And so, talking about the recycling side of things, actually, real quick, could you just jump down to the next slide? This is an example of some of the slides that we were able to use with messaging that went along with it. And then let's go back. And so we were able to actually leverage this into tens of thousands of views, which is really cool. And that's a really good example of coming in for public comment and and having the discussion. I gotta ask, have you teachers been impressed?
Yeah, a little bit. I have a advisor for the club, and he was really happy with the work that we did. So it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Thank you guys for helping me with this.
All right, we're going to come to you so you don't have to move around, but
Thank you.
we've got a certificate that we're going to present to you, thanking you for coming in and participating on this one.
Oh, no, no. One, two, three. There we go. And one more. One, two, three.
Awesome. All right, we'll move into item number 3, which is the proclamation to Second Harvest. Folks who are here from Second Harvest, come on up. I think most people certainly have, know who Second Harvest Orange County is, but I have a proclamation, but before I do that, is there anything that you'd like to do? Actually, Solomon, why don't you make sure you're making the introductions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mayor Will O'Neill and the rest of the team here. I'm Vice Chairman at Second Harvest Food Bank, which is the largest food bank here in Orange County, one of 2 sources of major kind of food distribution for all of the needs for hunger here in Orange County. We have our CEO, Claudia Keller, here, and our government relations lead, Malia Carey, who will kind of walk you through some of the steps.
Salman, I also add that Salman is our vice chair and chair-elect for the board of directors. It's a pleasure to be here. We had prepared a PowerPoint. Here? Great. So before I start, I wanted to make 2 comments. I wanted to comment, normally we accept these proclamations in September during Hunger Action Month, but I have to say, I really, really appreciate this because September is not the only month where there's hungry people, and I will go out on a limb and say that the need continues to be very high, and we need this kind of awareness in the community to help us endeavor on our mission. You met Salman on our board. I also want to call attention to one of your community members and a former board chair of Second Harvest and founder of Harvesters, our largest fundraising group. Jill Johnson-Tucker is in the audience today. So our mission at Second Harvest is to provide dignified, equitable, and consistent access to nutritious food. Those are 3 important factors in our mission. We're not a new kid on the block. We've been around for 40 years. We were founded in 1983 by the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and behind you see some milestones. I always like to add that 1983 is also the year I arrived in Orange County as a young student at UC Irvine. So a good year for Orange County, I think, with a food bank and myself arriving. Who do we serve? This is often a question that I get asked. We serve working families, college students, children, and seniors. And people are surprised to know that we have 17 college pantries in our community. Think about that for a minute. We are assisting college students to make sure that they have food to eat. Right now, on average, we're serving over 400,000 people a month through our pantry system of 300 pantries and points of distribution. I will remind you all, and you know this, that we live in a county of 3.1 million people. So that is the need that continues to be elevated, even coming out of COVID. Here in Newport Beach, we are happy to partner with two of our best pantries, Coastline Community College here in Newport Beach, as well as the Melinda Hoag Smith Center for Healthy Living. For those of you that have never been to the food bank, and I know the mayor has been more than once, and we appreciate his visit, I personally invite you all to come visit us. We are off of Sand Canyon off the 5, adjacent to the Great Park. That goes for anybody in the audience as well. But I'll give you a quick 60-second tutorial on how a food bank works. We actually do not distribute food to the community directly. We amass food. We take donated food, we buy food, we get food from the U.S. government. And something that makes us very unique, we grow our own food here in Orange County. We grow about 5 million pounds of locally grown Orange County produce in partnership with the University of California. That food comes to the food bank in Irvine and is distributed through houses of worship, schools, senior centers, houses of worship, shelters for the unhoused, soup kitchens, and transitional living facilities. So we act as a distribution center for a 300-plus partner network. We run with a lean staff of 95, but it's important to note that we could not function without volunteers, and those are people just like you. Last year, we enjoyed over 70,000 volunteer hours from 18,000 distinct volunteer visits, and those volunteers do everything from help us write grants, help us pack food, help us fill orders, and during the pandemic, they even drove boxes to the homes of shut-in seniors. So I don't know if before this you knew we existed, but you know now, and I will double down on my invitation for all of you to come visit your food bank here in Orange County. Thank you.
Awesome. Councilmember Wagon, before I
Yeah, I wanted to just let my colleagues know, and if there's a way that you could send an invitation out for the No Lunch Lunch, I always find that to be a really engaging event. I worked for a member of the legislature for a lot of years, and I always went, but didn't see a lot of council members, so I don't know if maybe that was on purpose. We like to talk, and we don't always have a lot of action, but it would be nice to maybe send to our council colleagues to let them know. I like how you moved it up 1 week this time, because usually it's the week of Thanksgiving. A lot of people go out of town. That's why I didn't make it last year, but this year you've moved it up a week in advance. So yeah, it's a great event, and it really does, hit the heart and let you know that Orange County doesn't just have a bunch of rich people that get to eat every day. There's a lot of folks that are struggling. So your organization does provide that. One of my mentors, Tom Fuentes, was one of the initial folks that started the food bank. So I always looked to him for guidance, and he was heavily involved in his time. And I appreciate what you guys do. So I think my colleagues would really enjoy the No Lunch Lunch.
Serve the table. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to read the proclamation. A couple of the statistics in here you just touched on, but let's see if I can add on to it. So, whereas Second Harvest Food Bank of Orange County serves as a large regional food bank that provides food for all who need it with a concentrated focus on our most vulnerable populations, children, working families, college students, and seniors. And whereas food insecurity is a real and pervasive reality in Orange County, noted by the fact that nearly 50% of Orange County public school students rely on school meals as their primary source of nutrition, and 1 in 11 children in Orange County is considered food insecure. And whereas Second Harvest distributed over 36.2 million pounds of food to an average 392,666 people per month in 2023, and whereas Second Harvest relies primarily on private donations with approximately 64% of its food donated, and also relies significantly on volunteers with over 70,000 volunteer hours donated last year. And whereas Second Harvest has been an integral part of our county, having celebrated its 40th anniversary on October 24th, 2023, now therefore I, Will O'Neill, Mayor of the City of Newport Beach, on behalf of the entire Newport Beach City Council, do hereby recognize Second Harvest Food Bank of Orange County for their extraordinary help feeding Orange County's vulnerable population. Thank you so much. So we're going to take a picture also, and Jill's going to come join us.
Yeah, someone on this side?
Yeah, someone wants to.
And one more. Thank you.
All right, we'll move into the last item for study session, capital improvement program, CIP early luck. Since we've got a lot of projects being discussed, it probably makes sense to just announce some conflicts, and if we end up focused in on them early, or I'm sorry, if we end up focusing in on them, then council members can leave the dais. Do we have any conflicts to announce?
Yes, I have to recuse myself on the Shore Cliffs water system due to the proximity to my personal residence.
Okay.
Yes. Based on real property at 224 Marine, I need to recuse myself from the following projects. 1, Utility Undergrounding Assessment District 124, and 2, the Balboa Island Main Water Project, and 3, the Balboa Island Street Drainage and Pump Station Improvement Projects. Based on my real property interest at 2902 West Coast Highway, I'll need to recuse myself from the Utility Undergrounding Assessment District number 120 and the Santa Ana and San Bernardino Avenue Street and Drainage Project. And finally, based on the interest in 417 and 501 30th Street, I'll need to recuse myself from the Peninsula Tide Gate Improvement Project.
You want to just keep sitting there? Or anyone else?
If you guys need me, I'll be in the back.
Anyone else? Nope. All right.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Exciting day today. We've been working on this for some time. If you recall, our annual capital improvement projects are started when we really kind of kick it off with their planning session in January, and we've been collecting ideas and working through our plans. We culminated recently to going to the Finance Committee to look at a couple of our FFP and a couple of our master plans, and now we are at the point where we want to present to you and the public all the new projects we think that would be included in this year's capital improvement program. So that's the important point we'll go through tonight. Deputy Director and City Engineer Jim Houlihan will be going through this. We're really just looking at the new projects. We're not talking about the stuff already in the works. We're happy to talk about that if you like, and then we'll wrap all this up if we get your comments and get the, proceed to go. We will go to in May you'll see the full CIP. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Jim Houlihan and we'll get started.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor O'Neill, council members. To start with, this is a slide we've seen before. What does the capital improvement program do for our city, and why do we have it? So it sets priorities and appropriates funds. It provides the basis for the project planning and identifies potential conflicts, develops and constructs identified public improvements, and addresses significant maintenance projects, and responds to changing priorities and conditions throughout the city. As a follow-up to the planning session in early February, and to reiterate, the CIP budget focuses the resources on maintaining or replacing existing infrastructure and keeping it in good condition. It includes $6 million in a general fund investment for this year, and an additional $5 million from the CIP general fund balance. It includes $2.5 million for facility maintenance master plan projects, $2.3 million for park maintenance master plan projects, and another $1 million for neighborhood enhancement projects. To date, through the end of February, the first 8 months of this fiscal year, we have completed approximately $24 million in projects. These listed here, these 8 represent some of the, I think it was about 14 that we've completed. That adds up to that 24 million to date. The most significant are those first 2, the Balboa Boulevard and the Newport Coast Drive paving projects. Currently, the city has approximately $102 million in projects in construction, and that constitutes about 33 projects in construction right now. These list of 8 here comprise of about $63 million in projects. Very significant projects that Public Works is undertaking. As you all are well aware of these projects, I think, Dave, you have a few comments on this?
Well, when I was going through this with Jim earlier, I just wanted to compliment the whole city and staff, council and others. There's a lot of work going on, and it's important to recognize that, and a lot of challenging work. I also say that with an air of caution and always kind of managing expectations, because a lot of these projects we're taking on as a city, which is great, are challenging projects, coastal permitting, community involvement, consensus building, so they tend to take a lot more time than just paving a road. And we have a lot of those going on. So just a note before we go on that we have a lot, and this is all encumbered money right now. So I want to just thank Jim and his staff for doing that and recognize that we got a lot going before we start talking about what we're going to start doing.
Yeah. So in this current year that we're in right now, the budget was approved at $103.4 million. And for next year, fiscal year, the proposed budget is approximately $84 million. Of that, $49 million in new funding and $35 million in rebudget. And the rebudget, just a reminder, those are funds from the current or previous years that have not been encumbered by a contract and will roll into the next fiscal year to be contracted. So here's an example of 7 projects that they're in design, so some of that money not being shown is encumbered. This is unencumbered money that will be likely in the construction efforts or be added to in a future year or in this fiscal year. You'll see, or this coming fiscal year, you may see some of these projects with new future money being added to this, like 15th Street restroom, for instance. So as I go through them, you'll recognize them. The next slide shows the summary of the new funding type by type. General fund, as I mentioned earlier, about $11 million. Road funding, that includes some of the general fund, but also SB1, gas tax, and Measure M2. And then the other large one here is the FFP, which I've also included the FMMP and PMMP. Those are the Facilities Master Maintenance Plan and the Parks Master Maintenance Plan, about $14 million. So the total, again, $49.1 million in proposed new funding. So in all, as I go through these different divisions in our CIP, there are 43 new projects with new funding. Some of these projects have rebudget, so they've been in the budget before, and there's new funding, whether it's for construction in this coming year, and we have design money now, or they're just longer-term projects. So in all, we'll have about 70 projects in our future in this coming CIP that we'll present in May. And again, what you'll see here is about 43 of those with new funding. So in the facility side, as I mentioned earlier, the 15th Street restroom replacement, that what we're proposing is additional funding for the construction. We already had some in the rebudget, and this is additional funding to get into construction on that project. The significant project here being the Balboa Library and Fire Station 1. That is the proposed funding, again, from our FFP, our planning tool. That $9.3 million is what we're proposing. Again, a planning tool, best we know right now, would probably bid it a year plus from now, about a year from now, and that would start in fall of '25, that project. And stop me on any of these pages if you want to talk about a specific project, for sure. On streets and drainage, this is usually our largest, at least in number of projects, and usually in new funding. This is our largest division of our CIP. A significant project here being the Balboa Boulevard and Newport Boulevard pavement rehab. This will finish our paving efforts on the peninsula. So for Balboa Boulevard, we'll be paving from West Coast Highway to 12th Street, and then we'll be paving Newport Boulevard from 30th to McFadden Square, and then also a portion of 32nd Street. So significant project on the peninsula. Some additional street and drainage projects. One of the items, if you see the bottom one, the Ocean Boardwalk expansion, that project would be tied to the 15th Street restroom. And we haven't begun them, but once we have our public forum, we'll be talking about this as well as the 15th Street restroom. This is the section from the school, the elementary school, to the pier. So that's what we would be proposing to look at there. And then the last few, these 4 projects are projects that will go into design, and in the future CIP budgets, we'll be looking for new money for construction. So in total, streets and drainage, almost $18 million of new money into these projects. On the transportation side, these are 2 programs that we have every year. The traffic signal rehabilitation program will be focusing on signals in the airport area. And in total, about $1.6 million. In the water quality and environmental section, this item is specifically tied to 3 areas. The Big Canyon Phase 2 monitoring and maintenance to carry it for the next 3 years to its completion as required by our permits. Same for the Peninsula Point. And then the last one is the water wheel. We had mitigation in that area. So this funding is for the monitoring and maintenance of those mitigation areas that we re-landscaped. In the park, harbors, and beaches section, these 2 items in the park section, specifically the park maintenance master plan, we have a laundry list of items. This is just the first year, actually the second year. The first year was this current year, and we're working on procuring water meters, irrigation controllers for many of our parks that need replacement with updated controllers. And then this coming year, along with concrete on the sidewalks, new concrete, and some fencing and lighting, and we have a long list for the next 5 years for PMMP. This will be the beginning of taking care of a lot of those items that have been deferred, let's say.
I just want to say thanks again for this one. This is going to be a big deal as we complete this through in the next 5 years. So again, thank you.
On the harbors and beaches side, one of the significant items here is the ocean and harbor bulkhead seawalls structure repair. We're starting design on really 8 areas, specifically in the Newport Island area. There's maybe 6 areas there we're looking at, and then also on the Rhine Channel area on 28th Street and 29th Street at the street ends. So these are all street ends, public street ends that will be addressing seawalls that need addressing, that are in disrepair, that need work. And then the last item, or the last few items, the big one here, Newport Pier and McFadden Square. Again, we need to still get into that public outreach effort, but this would take us into that design effort, permitting and design for next fiscal year, probably a year from now, once we've spent some time with the public on this, this effort.
I just jump in. I apologize. We're probably a little behind on the Newport Pier, and it's no fault except we've got a lot of work. And as you recall, we have the junior guard building. We had to do some extra work. We had a little rough start getting the lecture hall off and some other items, and a lot of other items are coming in with staff issues. So we are going to get to this. I apologize, but that's some of the challenges with some of these complex projects. They're just taking longer. The library itself right now going through, which by the way will probably be coming to you in probably the 1st of May, we're looking at to bring the Balboa Library. So that's coming, but it's taken some time to get through the various committees and commissions.
Yeah.
Sorry, when you say you're bringing it to us for design approval before right, it's not bid.
Not bid, no.
Right.
It'd be coming to you for recommendations from the library trustees and the PB&R Commission, and to you to ask you to approve the concept and the use of the plan. And from there, if you approve that, we'll do the environmental doc. It'll go to design and then to bid.
You think that'll come to us in May?
I was thinking April, but I need to talk to the city manager. It looks like it's going to be more like the first meeting in May right now. We have to check on that. Just tentative right now.
Okay, thanks.
In the water division of the CIP, we have quite a bit of work there. One of the big ones is the wastewater bay crossings. So we had this estimated in our master plan at a little over $8 million for next 2 years out. Well, there's new technology on the lining of these lines, and that project was a removal and replacement of those lines. What we found is there's a great opportunity, and likely we'll be bidding this as a lining project and saving significant amount of money on this project and moving it forward. So we're looking to finishing up the plans and getting out to bid and getting out for next year. So that's good news on that one. And there's other crossings. This is the first 4, and I think there's about 6 more. And the other item, we have a couple wells, our main wells in Fountain Valley, and the first item there is some rehabilitation of, it seems yearly, but rehabilitation of one of those wells to increase the production from that well. On the wastewater side, these items we typically have in there each year, and they cover the grade adjustments and a lot of lining projects that come up throughout the year, not specifically designated, but every year we go through this, and we pick up a lot of projects. Kings Road, we've got a project on Via Lido that we need to replace a sewer line there in the Lido Village area on Via Lido. So this is significant, it will be a significant part of that project. And then our utilities group has, they maintain our oil well field. And each year they add a few of the oil wells for maintenance. This year they've added these 3 for a total of $750,000. And this is a restatement of the earlier slide that I had. That gives us our new funding of $49.1 million. And lastly, a little look ahead on our 5-year, some estimated construction starts. And so in 25-26, significant project on MacArthur. I mentioned earlier we're going to focus on the airport area on the signals. We would follow that with work on MacArthur Boulevard, repaving it and putting in a median and landscaping it and enhancing the area as it grows with residential. In 26-27, we hope to be working on the pier and McFadden Square. In 27-28, the first phase of the seawall on Balboa Island. 28-29, some roadway projects, Jamboree and San Joaquin Hills Road for repaving. And then lastly, in 29-30, quite a ways out, but We hope to be putting in some new wells in Fountain Valley. It'll take quite a while. Looking for land, looking for opportunities. Mark Vukovic and his team are looking at opportunities in Fountain Valley. Questions?
All right, do we have any questions? That's great. That's good. All right, let's go out to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. The presentation clearly has a budget focus to it, and one of the themes is that the various projects, many of them will be paid apparently out of specific dedicated funds. And the summary table here is useful. I would suggest, though, it would also be useful to be provided with a table that shows what the current balance or what the starting balance would be in each of those funds at the beginning of the year, and how the proposed total expenditure over the year out of that fund compares to the anticipated revenue that will be going into each fund during the year. And some of them, I think, are separate, like here it's water and wastewater combined. The two, I'm sure, are separate. And so they would have separate revenues and separate expenses, and it would be good to see if we're holding our own, losing ground on the fund, or not spending as much as we could. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay, we'll bring it back. Councilmember Weigand, then Councilmember Avery.
Yeah, just on the, and I'm sure you guys already have it figured out, but just to confirm the Balboa Boulevard, Newport Boulevard pavement rehab, that's going to be done off-season, like not during busy tourist season, right?
That's right.
Okay, cool.
Nope.
Councilmember Avery.
Thanks. This CIP program for this particular period of time, is it the largest one we've done before?
Probably not the largest. It's a large one.
Yep.
I was looking back. I laughed because back in 2000 we were about 20 million, and we have grown substantially every year. And we do add projects mid-year, like we did the lecture hall, so that spikes up what we're estimating usually. So the biggest one was when we did the Civic Center. We had Marina Park and some things, but it's a very large and ambitious program, which is, we have a lot of big things we want to do.
That's kind of what I'm taking away from this. Yeah, I think it's just, it's really ambitious, and I think if anybody can do it, our city can do it. You guys are, department is unbelievable. It's great, and I hope, obviously managing staff load is, a big part of it. I know you've done that. So, but looking at all this is a lot of moving parts, and but all of it's great. It's stuff that needs to be done, and I'm sure from a timing perspective, it's kind of been ranked and ordered in terms of need and use of resources to get those most important projects on first.
Thank you. The blessing is the city has the money. That we plan well. The finance committee and the way that we operate provides the revenue to do these projects, so we can do a park maintenance plan now and take care of backstops and things. That's a nice thing to be able to do. It's a lot of work, but it's good to be able to have the work.
Yeah, most of it's at the bottom of the pyramid that's supporting everything else. So, thank you.
Councilmember Grant.
I would just reiterate, it's a remarkable amount of work. I mean, the presentation just shows how much expertise and dedication that the staff has, and having the money but spending it wisely is really the most important part of this, and that's obviously always the balance. And we're just very grateful that you are there to provide the leadership to make all of this happen in a way that doesn't inconvenience our residents and helps to alleviate the burdens that we might have otherwise in the city without you. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great. All right. Now we'll move into public comments. Madam Clerk.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are invited on items listed on the agenda and non-agenda items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
Great. So we're still in study session, but you're welcome to come on up and make public comments now. We'll be probably back in about 20, 25 minutes for after closed session. So do we have any public comments? Okay. All right. Mr. Harp.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council will adjourn a closed session to meet with the city's real property negotiators regarding negotiations related to the property located at 301 East Balboa Boulevard in Newport Beach, as well as the litigation matter titled Bruna Schindler versus the City of Newport Beach, and that's all set forth on the agenda under items 4A and B. Thank you.
Okay, we'll plan to reconvene at 5 p.m. for the regular meeting. Thanks.
She'll just do it. You gotta tell her.
Aggressive?
Which is classic. Yeah, she's gonna do it.
All right. Welcome back to the regular meeting for March 12th, 2024. Madam Clerk, roll call.
The record will reflect that all members of council are present.
Mr. Harp, do we have a closed session report?
There are no closed session reports tonight.
All right.
Thank you.
Tonight we'll have the invocation from Pastor Phil Eiskens. Eiskens, there you go. From Lighthouse of Costa Mesa Church of the Nazarene, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Kleiman.
When I was in elementary school, no one got that last name right. Now everyone gets it right because we're so international, I think. But Mayor O'Neill, esteemed City Council, it's always a joy to be here to be part of the invocation here. And it seems the invocation has gone from a necessity in government to a tradition. But I read something a while back that really kind of struck me as incredible as why we even have an invocation at the beginning of government duties. But the late James Kennedy, the former pastor of Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church, he wrote this: in reading over the constitutions of all 50 of our states, I discovered there is in all 50, without exception, an appeal or a prayer to the Almighty God of the universe. Through all 50 state constitutions, without exception, there runs this same appeal and reference to God, who is the creator of our liberties and the preserver of our freedoms. Can we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, we consider what we have just read. We invoke your presence here tonight. We appeal for the wisdom that comes only from above, godly wisdom that gives all of us a very keen sense of right and wrong. We pray for the mayor. We pray for the esteemed city council. We pray for the police department who risk their lives daily to protect the citizens of this great city. That you would bestow upon each of them the grace and humility to make sound decisions, decisions that truly are in the best interest of all citizens, rich and poor alike, here in the city of Newport Beach. For your word is very clear. God does not show favoritism, but accepts all who reverence him and do what is right. Bless and protect all of us here tonight and give us wisdom, and we pray these things in Jesus' mighty name, and everybody said, amen.
Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
All right. Now we'll move into City Council announcements and oral reports from City Council on committee activities. Councilmember Kleiman.
Well, let me be the first to wish our very own Mayor Pro Tem Stapleton a happy birthday. Nice of him to share the day with us on the dais, and I'm so glad he's finally catching up to me in age.
Councilmember Blom.
I have nothing, thank you.
Councilmember Avery.
Just a couple meetings, board meeting for the Orange County Sanitation District, and then Mr. Wigan and I met separately with Sand District staff. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Wigan.
Yeah, I am appointed by this board, or by this committee, or council, geez, to serve on the Orange County Mosquito and Vector Control Board, and it's in charge of all of our vectors. I'd like to have them come one of these days to give a presentation on what they do, but we've been having some discussions about a possible relocation of their headquarters. Their building is in Garden Grove, kind of where the 22 and Hassard Street is, and they are on 5 acres, and they've had a building since pre-World War II, and so they are looking to try to either move to a new location or rebuild at their existing site. There's a lot of space limitations, and it's an industrial complex. So they have ponds where they have mosquito fish. They have laboratories. They do testing on all types of potential vectors. So it's a very interesting board, very scientific, and all 34 Orange County cities. So if you could imagine there's 7 of us here, you have 34 members there all huddled up, and trying to make a decision isn't always very simple. So if you happen to see an office location of 5 acres in an industrial part of Orange County, that would be helpful to us to try to find something. But it's an interesting board, and I'm honored to be selected by this council to serve on there. So thank you.
Fantastic. Councilmember Grant.
Just a few things. First, I also want to wish Joe Stapleton a happy 40th birthday. I was honored to serve with him on the committee that brought the Speak Up Newport Mayor's Dinner, honoring our Mayor O'Neill, along with former Mayor Ed Selich and former council member Tony Petros, and we did enjoy a very wonderful event, including many people in the city, to, again, honor our mayor and our former mayors. And again, I would applaud Speak Up Newport for their continued leadership in bringing matters of civic importance to our community. I was able to join our Newport Beach Police Department at the recent mobile cafe on Lido at Hearst Coffee. This is always an important opportunity for the community to interact with our public safety team, and we really greatly appreciate the work that Steve Oberon and the rest of the team do to bring that opportunity to our community. And then I also attended, along with Councilmember Kleinman, who would be the most appropriate on this dais to do so, the 2nd annual Orange County Women in Leadership Summit, and we also had our city manager, Grace Leong, with us, and it was a nice opportunity for us as electeds and as the city manager to interact with others similarly situated around our county, along with business leaders, leaders from Sacramento, and just share ideas and experience in order to better our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just want to echo Councilwoman Grant. The Speak Up Newport Mayor's Dinner, I think, was maybe the best we've had yet, and congrats to Mayor Will O'Neill. He gave a key to the city to the Ben Carlson Foundation, so I thought that was a home run and really well deserved. Councilman Weigand and myself toured the Costa Mesa Bridge Shelter. It was nice to be over there and see that firsthand. So kudos to the work they're doing over there. And then I also had the Newport Shores annual HOA meeting on Saturday. So it was good for me to give an update to the Newport Shores. So that's my report.
Great. I have a few things. I also want to say thank you very much to Speak Up Newport. It was just really well done, and I appreciate everything they did to make that happen. The mobile cafe was well attended until it rained. We'll have to get back out there when it's sunny again. One of our few days of rain. And then I was able to do the State of the City with the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce last week. I'll also be doing a State of the City discussion tomorrow with the Corona Del Mar Chamber of Commerce. And then I was able to attend a couple schools to speak to students as mayor, Our Lady Queen of Angels, and then Newport Coast Elementary School. Coming up, we have the Corona Del Mar home tour on Thursday. They'll be out on the grass out there. I'll be presenting them with a proclamation because it's 40 years, 40-year anniversary this time. It's great. And then the Mayor's Egg Roll is on March 23rd, also here. And then everyone be prepared. We've got the Hogue Classic coming up. It's gonna be great. All right, let's move into consent calendar. Madam Clerk.
This is a time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion, items 1 through 9. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine, will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending inaction. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion, unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
All right. Poll or clarification, Councilmember Kleinman?
None.
Councilmember Blom?
I have none.
Councilmember Avery?
None.
Councilmember Weigand?
None.
Councilmember Grant?
None.
Mayor Pro Tem?
None.
And I have none. We'll move into the consent calendar. With none being pulled, let's see.
Yep, I'll make a,
Sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
move the consent calendar with the amendments to item number 1, the minutes.
All right, do I have a second?
Mr. Mayor, can I just add, I think staff added added amendments to item number 4 as well. I think, if I'm correct. I saw that in the packet.
Got it. Okay, with those amendments included
The
in
amendments to the
motion, do I have
minutes in item 4.
Yep, do I have a second? Yep, Councilmember Weigand with a second. All right, we're going to go out to public comment. So if you'd like to comment on items 1 through 9, please come on up. And if you'd like, if multiple people would like to comment, you can. We've got alternating microphones right here. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is James Carroll, and I am the former director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, a position known informally as the U.S. Drug Czar. I oversaw a staff of 100 people during 3 years in service under the President Donald Trump administration. The 100 people at the White House that I oversaw, we set the policy for the federal government on issues dealing with drugs and drug addiction. We oversaw the $37 billion at that point on that issue. I'm also happy to say that during my time in service, it was the first time in 3 decades that we reduced the number of fatal overdoses down to the low 70,000s. Now, as you know, we're about 50% higher nationally with about 110 fatal overdoses. One of the things that came to my attention when I was at the White House was a recommendation from the FDA to ban kratom. I admit, I started my career as a criminal prosecutor at the state level before going on to the U.S. Department of Justice. I didn't really know much about kratom whatsoever, and when FDA came in to see me about it, it was really new to the issue. At that point, during the presentation by the FDA, they were talking in very scary terms about the number of fatalities, the number of overdoses, and being that it was the FDA, I should have known that it was one of those situations. I'm with the federal government and I'm here to help, because the reality is, digging into the subject a little bit more, it turned out that there was not enough information being passed on. What happened from that point was I contacted the top physician at HHS, a position known as the Assistant Secretary for Health. I'm speaking quickly, I only have 3 minutes. The Assistant Secretary for Health is the top public health doctor overseeing the Public Health Corps, overseeing the Surgeon General. And I spoke to him about it and said, hey, the FDA just left, this sounds bad. And he had a pretty aggressive reaction and said, where are they headed next? And per the regulatory action, they needed to head to the DEA to get DEA approval to ban this. And they asked where, the Assistant Secretary for Health asked where is Udom Dillon, at that point a Southern California native who was serving as the DEA administrator, was at National Airport. I can tell you, because I was part of this discussion and part of what happened, was the Assistant Secretary for Health called a vehicle, drove to National Airport, huddled at Reagan Airport, where he laid out, in fact, that what the FDA had said was not true. And that led to us pulling back on the ability to ban this, because what it is shown, and it's been shown in the record since then, is the National Institute for Drug Abuse and Drug Addiction, the top federal agency, has since come forward and said this drug shows remarkable potential to save lives, to wean people off from addiction. In the last several administrations, there's been $30 million funded to NIDA to do research on kratom, because it does show great potential. And we know from anecdotal evidence that people are also using it to do that for themselves.
Did you fly out?
I did.
Yeah, go ahead. You have 1 more minute then. Go ahead.
Thank you. So what I'm asking is, and I heard a great presentation from Department of Public Works, and the care and dedication that went into that presentation, it made me think, I hope, that some degree of care and consideration is going into this decision here today before we cut this off. I'm also come from a family where addiction is present. I got into this because my daughter became addicted to opioids, and we know that is not an issue that Newport Beach is immune from. And so I hope for the time we should be worrying about fentanyl coming across the border, time we should be worrying about that, we should be supporting our law enforcement. It's great to see such a great department here, and I certainly hope, again, that care and dedication is extended to all.
Thank you very much. All right, next speaker, please.
Thanks, Mayor O'Neill, members of the council. My name is Matt Salmon. I'm from Arizona. I was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives for 10 years. I was in Congress when the FDA went to the DEA and asked them to schedule kratom as an addictive substance and an opioid. And we actually did our own research in Congress, and dozens of members of the House and the Senate in a bipartisan way sent a letter to the DEA asking them to use science and to not schedule kratom at that particular time. Ultimately, they did back off, and many states, including my state, have taken, I think, a much more helpful and positive step toward regulating kratom and making sure that the kratom substance is a pure, unadulterated kratom and safe for public consumption, make sure that kids don't have access to it, and make sure that it's labeled accurately so that people know what they're getting. And I think that if you look at the science involved, as has been studied by notable institutions as Johns Hopkins University at the direction of the National Institute for Drug Addiction, they found that the things that the FDA has alleged simply are not true, and that there are many, many things that kratom can offer. I think you've just heard the potential for helping those that are addicted to opioids, which end people's lives, as one of the positive things that can come about. I'm just hoping and asking that instead of making a hasty decision tonight on banning and trying to drive it into the black market underground, I believe a much better way is to look at what many, many other states, mine included, have done in passing the Kratom Consumer Protection Act to make sure that it's a safe product. And please, during the COVID situation, which was very, very harmful to our country, I heard over and over again from people on both sides of the aisle, let's stop the nonsense and let's just follow the science. And so I would ask the members of the council to just follow the science. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kurt Bramble. I currently serve in the Utah Senate. And the reason I'm here is at the invitation of the American Kratom Association, a group that works on behalf of consumers. I had the privilege of running the first Kratom Consumer Protection Act in the country. My journey started like you with a proposal to ban kratom in the state of Utah. My background, I'm a CPA, I'm not a physician, I'm not a scientist, but I'm a father of 6 children, a grandfather of 20. My wife and I have been married 46 years. One of our daughters got involved with drugs when she was in high school, a high school athlete. Her boyfriend was a high school athlete. They both went to college on scholarship. They got married. Well, my son-in-law is dead from an opioid overdose. Had we known about kratom, we possibly could have saved his life. Rather than banning kratom, you ought to ban adulterated kratom, ban kratom that is spiked with fentanyl, benzodiazepine, tramadol. I have a letter here. This represents hundreds of, or better than 1,000 letters that I've received over the last 4 years since we passed the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. And I joked with Councilman Kleinman, or Council Member Kleinman earlier today that they referred to me as Representative Bramble. I guess it was a promotion from the Senate, but Representative Bramble, I understand that you have been very supportive of some legislation around the regulation and legal parameters of kratom. Thank you for being willing to stand up. I was on prescription opioids for over 5 years, completely dependent from what started out as chronic pain. When I tried to gradually wean myself off and I eventually stopped completely, the withdrawal symptoms were simply unbearable. Kratom has allowed me to continue my efforts to be completely free of opioids. I haven't taken a pill for over 2 years. What a blessing. Kratom saved my life. That's the story that's playing out time and time and time again with this plant from Indonesia. It's a plant that's in the coffee family, not the opioid family. There is no respiratory depression. There is no mental impairment. There is no euphoric high. And the risk of addiction of kratom, the scientists will tell you that it's similar to caffeine. The challenge is by banning it, you would prohibit hundreds or possibly thousands. I was surprised Orange County I'm a senator in a state with a total population is 3.3 million. We heard during the previous session, Orange County is 3.1 million, so your county is about the same population as our state. In our state, we have thousands of people that are using kratom as an alternative to opioids or to break the opioid habit. That's the challenge. And by banning it, the harm that you would potentially do to those folks that are desperately trying to beat the drug addiction would be significant. That's why the National Institute of Drug Abuse, Johns Hopkins, University of Florida, and others, the DEA, have said kratom should be available, that the potential public benefit far outweighs any challenges. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Matt Caddo. I'm the Senior Fellow on Public Policy with the American Kratom Association. We represent consumers of kratom in the United States, the some 15+ million people who rely upon kratom every day to improve their health and well-being. I reviewed the packet of information that you have relied upon in order to support the ordinance that's been proposed. I can tell you it's outdated and incorrect. But you don't have to believe me. You merely have to look to the Food and Drug Administration itself. They were called by a federal judge in the Southern District of Southern California to come to a court hearing, a Brady hearing, to demonstrate that kratom was dangerous. They refused, even though they had initiated the court case against the kratom importer that had pled guilty. And in that particular refusal, they said the reason was the FDA, have not yet come to a determination that kratom is dangerous. Then, in early February, a deputy commissioner of the FDA spoke to a group called the Alliance for a Stronger FDA and said what they're trying to do with kratom is to identify manufacturers to make sure they do it correctly. They want to make sure that it's regulated properly, and they want to make sure it's not available to children. That's what the Kratom Consumer Protection Act does, and that's what you could do as well. But why the dramatic turnaround? They revealed, a FDA representative spoke to a symposium of international scientists on February 15th and disclosed a dose finding study that was conducted by the FDA on kratom, where they fed human participants a ascending dose of kratom until they got to an adverse event. It took 12 grams, which is an enormous amount of kratom, in a 5-minute period, 24 capsules, before 2 of the 40 participants experienced nausea. That cleared the way for the FDA to now conduct what's called a human abuse potential study. That will tell us in the next 2 to 4 years what exactly the severity of an addiction or dependence on kratom might be. It will inform science. But all of that undermines everything that's in the packet that you were provided about the FDA's position. It is today why the FDA has not been successful in getting a federal ban on kratom. It is why people like Senator Mike Lee of Utah, a very conservative member of the United States Senate, and Cory Booker, who's on the other side of the aisle, support the federal Kratom Consumer Protection Act to require that the appropriate regulation be there. But here's the most important thing. I have participated in dozens and dozens of hearings around the country, and I have heard one kratom consumer after another stand at the podium like this and tell them how kratom has saved their lives. I remember one in Ohio who stood up. He was not the ideal candidate that I would have picked. He had a leather jacket on, no sleeves, tattooed up his face, had a mohawk haircut, pierced in every place imaginable, and he stood up and said, "I was in federal prison and I got out a year ago." He said, "I had to make a choice and I found kratom." He said, "It saved my life because I'd be dead today or I'd be back in prison." He said, "But don't feel sympathy for me." And he turned to introduce his wife and a newborn baby. He said, "Kratom has saved my life for them." That's what happens every day in America. Please do not ban kratom. Give people this opportunity. We can find ways to regulate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Alexander Karp. I have suffered from a degenerating disc between my L5 and S1 vertebrae since high school. This degenerating disc caused periodic extreme pain for several days at a time, and as I have become older, this has become more frequent and lasted longer. In 2016, I was under one of these severe long episodes that was 5 months and counting. In order to manage this pain, I'd stopped playing all sports, I'd stopped exercising, stopped going out with friends, and stopped traveling. This is when I started to get depressed, angry, and I no longer envisioned a future I wanted to be a part of. Fortunately, in December of this year, I heard about and tried kratom for the first time. In short, kratom was a miracle. When I consume kratom, my pain is reduced from a debilitating 10 down to a 2 or a 3, and I am able to get my life back. Kratom allows me to exercise, spend time with my friends and family, and allows me to be a small business owner. When I first started consuming Kratom, I needed it 3 times a day to manage my chronic pain. Now, I use Kratom as needed, which is as few as a few times per month. Please support the science. Please use the science to support the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Hannah Clark. Mayor, council members, I am here today urging you to reconsider your stance on banning Kratom here in Newport Beach. Kratom is made by nature, created by God to help people with pain. That is what it has been doing for centuries and is still helping millions today. In the 90s, Purdue Pharma strongly advertised their famous OxyContin pill to help patients with a variety of pain problems. Very soon after, OxyContin and many other opioids became widely prescribed, overprescribed. Everyone taking these medications got addicted and lost their livelihoods. They became way more sick, mentally ill, started stealing to support their habit, hurt loved ones, no longer contributed to society, and many overdosed and died. All for the almighty dollar bill. It is truly sad that we are here today talking about banning a natural holistic supplement that can help treat pain, anxiety, depression, and so much more without addiction, negative side effects, and without getting, quote unquote, high. Part of me feels like we're here today because nobody can make money off of it. Why else would we be trying to ban it? I'm not only a Kratom advocate, Kratom has changed my life in so many ways. When I was 16, I was in a bad car accident, way injured my back, and was prescribed way too many opioids. They kept me on these for 12 years until the opioid epidemic came to light. My doctor ripped me off my meds, along with millions of others, leaving me to find ways to deal with my pain on my own. I felt heavily suicidal and was unable to function. Was not going to turn to drugs, but still felt like I was slowly dying. Through a friend, I found Kratom, and it changed my life for the better. I was able to go back to college and get my bachelor's degree in business, get a very good job, and buy my first home. There are millions of stories like mine. I also urge you to review the petition. Please, please, please do not ban this. Follow the science, because if you do ban it, it will do so much harm.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Hello, City Council. My name is Bruce Kakish. I come here today just on behalf of the community. I got a business in Newport Beach, Up in Smoke. We do sell Kratom. We got a bunch of clients who have various different needs. I mean, I went through your emails right here, and man, so many people just reaching out to you saying like, hey, Kratom saves my life for this reason, or I got some sort of chronic pain that it helps me deal with. So I guess I'm just up here to ask you guys to like at least reconsider or maybe temporarily open this up for better discussion, because this was only added to the minutes to the agenda a couple weeks ago, and I feel like there's not actually adequate time for there to be actual real public discussion about it. I just want to mention a couple things that some people wrote. There was one lady who wrote, I'm 66. I've been benefiting from Kratom for 11 years. It saved me from a terrible pain in my hips and back. Now it controls arthritis and allows me to do things pain-free. I'm so thankful for Kratom, it's heaven sent. Another person wrote, I've consumed Kratom to manage my chronic pain for almost 5 years. It's given me my life back. Keep Kratom legal. Another person wrote, Kratom saved my life. The roller coaster Big Pharma gets you on is awful. I have no drug or alcohol issues. Please leave Kratom be. It's safe and also necessary when without it I'd be in agony. Thank you for your attention. Another person wrote, Kratom saved my life. I have seen thousands of others in our communities around the nation that have said the same exact thing. Study it, listen to our stories, look at the true science. Do not try and ban this amazing plant. And I just think on the other end that Kratom will be legal up the street. It's in Costa Mesa. There's a few businesses out here that do sell Kratom or distribute Kratom, and you guys are just losing on tax dollars for people who've been here for like nearly a decade. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
How's it going, guys? My name is Daniel Fierro. I work with a business in Newport community that's deeply involved with Kratom. I see the direct benefits from this plant. Before we place a ban on something that we've actually yet to have a true discussion about, can we just please educate the community of the plant's benefits? It saves lives. I've actually lost both my parents to opioids, so I wish I would have known about Kratom sooner. I probably could have been here for my 10-month-old baby that I do have at home. So I've also known community members within the Newport community that have lost their lives to things like fentanyl, you know. So if we could educate our neighbors about Kratom, I think that lives can benefit from this. I just don't want to take access away to a plant that helps so many people, you know. I've seen it with my own eyes. It helps people live a normal life without pain, without anxiety. It helps people that suffer from serious illnesses just live a normal life. I've seen from firefighters to cops to MMA professionals, as well as people in the actual medical field, that find solace in this plant. So let's just keep the conversation open to at least have an open mind on the ban. Let's keep the tax dollars in the city of Newport. Let's not affect small businesses in the city of Newport. It's a plant that people thrive on. It changes lives. I just want to read this one quote that kind of touched home for me. A lady named Kaylee said that Kratom saved me from a horrible life of opioid addiction. It gave me back my life. It gave my children back. I can pay my bills now. I can hold a job. I'm a productive member of society, and that's all thanks to Kratom. And that's somebody that lives in Newport. That's somebody that pays taxes here. I just think that when you ban something, you're taking something away from something that changes lives, that keeps people alive, rather than educating them on it. You know, I just want you guys to make a rational decision on the things that you guys do. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jordan Richard. I'm a former opiate addict. At my worst, I was doing 50 Norcos every single day. Also doing 3 grams of heroin every single day. I was in and out treatment centers since I was pretty much 16. I'm 32 now. I've been taking Kratom daily for 10 years, and within that 10 years, I've gotten married and I have 5 beautiful kids. I live a completely normal life now because of this plant. I never would have seen that before. Even my mom, who's a drug and alcohol counselor, was very, very like, no, you're not doing that, you know, when she heard about Kratom. But now she's the biggest Kratom advocate in the world because it gave her son back. And I know, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional right now, but this plant has given me my life and my kids. Full disclosure, I am in the industry. You know, I am a Kratom vendor, but I've seen it change millions of lives, even in my own company. Like, I get letters all the time from families like, thank you so much, thank you so much. And I'm just forever grateful for this plant. I just don't know where I'd be without it. So I would really hope you would reconsider this because it's a miracle. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this? All right, we'll bring it back up. Any comments up here? Oh, all right. We'll move into voting then.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for item 3, ordinance 2024-5, an ordinance of the City Council of City of Newport Beach, adding chapter 10.75, prohibition of the sale and distribution of Kratom to title 10, offenses and nuisances of the Newport Beach Municipal Code. Council members Stapleton and Avery. With Council Member Avery voting no, the motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. And thank you very much for being here to advocate. We'll move into public comments on non-agenda items. Madam Clerk.
Public comments are invited on non-agenda items generally considered to be within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record.
All right, we'll move into public comments on non-agenda items.
Hey, Adam Leverins. Previously, I've spoken here and run out of time talking about the term private exclusive use in the context of offshore moorings. To recap, I currently hold a 40-foot offshore mooring permit. Having paid a particular attention since having heard that term private exclusive use, I've noticed that with wind and tides and currents, the vessel on my 40-foot mooring does not occupy a singular space 24/7. In fact, it drifts around so much that almost no space is permanently occupied. I've seen other vessels ranging from sailboats of over 40 feet to little fishing float tubes, kayaks, stand-up paddleboards, dinghies, sabots, laser sailboats, transition through the whole area, essentially. At Marina Park and Balboa Yacht Basin, there are city-managed docks over state-owned lands. And there are signs that prohibit public access to docks, prohibit swimming, fishing, things like that. And the vessels there are pretty much over the same spot all the time. When I hear the term private exclusive use being applied to offshore mooring permittees who are currently paying more in city fees than other users, and then spun in the context of somehow these offshore mooring permittees are being granted or gifted the use of state lands. Well, on the same hand, the city is exercising more private exclusive use of state lands. I think that's quite hypocritical, and I don't much care for hypocrisy, even though I suppose at times I do it myself, and I think we all do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please, on non-agenda items. Okay. Bring it back up here. We'll move into the public hearing on code enforcement. Do we need a staff or a staff presentation? Doesn't look like it. Any questions or comments from the dais on this one? Yep, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I would just say thank you for all the time and consideration on this. This is something that's been a direct impact for the residents and business owners in District 1 in the Peninsula, and obviously in Corona Del Mar when it comes to the beach vendors, and I've seen it firsthand, so I'm looking forward to seeing the enforcement.
Right. Let's go to public comment on this particular item. Any public comment on item 10?
Adam Leverins again. I've read through this a couple times, and I am curious. Based on what I see in it, this appears that it would make a car parked on the street with a for sale sign in the window or a dinghy at a public dock with a for sale sign on it subject to impoundment by the city, and I can't imagine that that's the intent. And I don't know if that's clarified in code elsewhere, but the way this is worded, is that a commercial purpose? Someone trying to sell their private vehicle as it's parked in front of their home? I think that needs to be clarified. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker on this item.
Mayor O'Neill, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I do think getting the details of the ordinance correct are difficult, and I think Adam just raised an interesting point. Another detail that might need clarification, I'm looking at the red line strikeout here on the next to last page. It's promising that the city employee will issue a receipt to the person, including date and time and a bunch of other stuff. Yet in the preceding paragraph, it says that it might be abandoned property. I'm not sure how you deliver a receipt to the person if there is no person there. Maybe that needs to be clarified. And then I provided a written comment, which I see now is not quite correct, because the idea of the ordinance is once something is impounded, you can't immediately go and reclaim it. You have to wait 30 days, between 30 and 60 days. However, there's an appeal process here, which sounds like it's going to take more than 30 days. And so are we actually saying if somebody files an appeal, they have to wait until that's resolved before they can go back and get their property? Or do they have an opportunity to reclaim it, pay the fee, and then get a refund? It's not clear from the way this is written. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. All right, bringing it back. The point about the for sale sign.
So I'll go ahead and take that one. There are special protections under state law for cars that are being sold, so those wouldn't apply to that.
Got it. Okay. Doesn't sound like dinghies would either, based on that. Yeah. Okay. And then anything Mr. Mosier said that you felt needed clarification?
No.
Okay. All right. We'll bring it back. Any comments? Motion? Staff recommendation moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Councilmember Kleiman. Let's go ahead and vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for ordinance 2024-6, an ordinance of the City Council of City of Newport Beach amending section 10.8.30, use of public property for commercial purposes of the Newport Beach Municipal Code. The motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
All right. Moving to our last item here, item number 11, the discussion about city membership in the League of California Cities. Any discussion before we go to public comment? Nope. All right. Mr. Medina.
Good evening, Mayor O'Neill and honorable council members. I did prepare a presentation for tonight. With your permission, Mayor, may I deliver that presentation and have time to go through it?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you. And may I, before I begin, Madam City Clerk, is there a clicker that I may borrow, or can I just tell you next slide? Would that be easier?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Appreciate that. Test it out. Oh, there we go. All right. Good evening, Mayor O'Neill, council members. Happy birthday, Mayor Pro Tem Stapleton. I'm Connor Medina. I'm the Regional Public Affairs Manager for the Orange County Division of the League of California Cities, or Cal Cities, and a proud Newport Beach resident of almost 6 years. Thank you again for the chance to be here with you tonight. I'm joined by Orange County Division President Marshall Goodman, the Mayor of La Palma. We have served as the largest advocacy association for cities since 1898, and the city of Newport Beach has been a member for as long as our records go back to. Cal Cities has 476 members out of 482 cities statewide. Prior to the study session on February 27th, I delivered an electronic copy of a membership value report to the council, and last week, Cal Cities Executive Director Carolyn Coleman provided a letter to the council recognizing the concerns outlined at the study session. I've spent a significant amount of staff time over the past few weeks working with the city to get us to move in a positive direction, not just because we never want any member to leave, but because I sincerely believe Newport Beach's participation is a vital component of our advocacy efforts, especially related to sober living facilities. To briefly cover the benefits of membership, and this slide is not a comprehensive list, a city must be a member in order to be involved in our advocacy efforts. This ranges from Cal Cities sending action alerts to the city manager and the council with template letters and relevant information, to me asking your staff for guidance on our advocacy, which I will touch on in a bit, but that has been vital to me in being the best advocate that I can be for Orange County cities. Additionally, a city must be a member to participate in policy committees, the state board, the division board, and professional departments. I'll also cover this a little later, but generally Newport Beach is one of the most engaged and active cities in the division through these opportunities. So first I want to briefly cover the 4 sponsor bills that we're pursuing this year. These collectively make up 1/4 of our total sponsored bill package, which speaks to how significant of a priority this is for Cal Cities. For the city to continue participating in advocacy on these bills alongside Cal Cities, the city would need to be a member, and there's significant weight to a statewide association of cities advocating on these bills compared to any one individual city. AB 2081 is a co-sponsored bill with Assemblywoman Lori Davies. It already got great coverage in the Register. It's a common sense proposal that requires licensed operators to post on their website for all prospective customers to see any disciplinary or legal actions being taken against them. AB 2121 is a bill that we are sponsoring, authored by Assemblywoman and former Newport Beach Council member Diane Dixon. We are working very closely, not just with her office, but also your contract lobbyist on this bill. It requires the city to be notified of a newly licensed facility, and it sets a 300-foot distance requirement for all licensed facilities. AB 2574 by Assemblyman Avelino Valencia codifies a case from a few years ago that allows cities to deem unlicensed facilities in residential areas that operate as part of a licensed facility located elsewhere to be found an unlawful business use within a residential zone. And SB 913 from Senator Umberg would allow a city to enforce compliance of licensed facilities and create a process for cities to conduct site visits to unlicensed facilities. This would be huge for cities because you would be less reliant on the state to enforce that law. And many of these ideas were developed in direct consultation with cities. So City Manager Leung and City Attorney Harp have been a vital resource for providing input as to why Cal City should focus effort around local enforcement, around distancing. In addition to 2 virtual meetings that convene numerous cities, I regularly communicate with the City Manager's office on these bills and other policy priorities. If the city is not a member, Cal Cities loses them as a resource, and ultimately it would hamstring our collective efforts to pass legislation that helps cities manage sober living facilities. Regarding Proposition 1, which has not been called yet but appears likely to pass, we recognize the concerns that this council has expressed regarding Cal City's support position. I do want to note that our city PAC, which is not funded in any way by your city's dues, did not contribute any funding to this campaign, and my time has not been spent advocating for Prop 1, but rather on the sponsor bills that I was mentioning. But now that Prop 1 is looking likely to pass, we are shifting gears towards the implementation phase. And as a statewide organization, we believe that this funding should be distributed statewide. We will be the lead representative for cities interfacing with regulators to say, let's make sure that we recognize the areas that are already experiencing overconcentration. Additionally, we will advocate for distancing requirements for any project funded by the bond. Having the city with us during these conversations will allow Cal Cities to be more effective. Councilmember Kleiman asked about RENA advocacy at the study session, so I want to briefly touch on that. Our advocacy platform calls for reforms to the process, and we need an equitable, transparent housing element process. We participated in numerous meetings as the representative for cities with HCD over the past year, expressing for the frustration that many cities have with getting their housing element certified. We're working with Senator Steve Glazer right now to get a state audit of the entire RENA housing element review process. And again, it only strengthens our message and bolsters our advocacy if the city is working alongside us. And even before the 6th cycle, we have opposed legislation that balances the scales against cities when meeting their RENA numbers. We strongly opposed SB 35 in 2017, and AB 1771 and SB 828 in 2018, for example. And during the 6th cycle, there was legislation that was passed mid-cycle that put the Southern California cities especially at a disadvantage by speeding up the rezoning process. We successfully fought for a 1-year extension for cities to come into compliance. We also provided educational materials to cities so that they knew their options and how to challenge their RENA allocation. And now that we're heading into the 7th RENA cycle, it's rearing its head in a few years, we're going to need to be a unified front to tell the state the process right now is not equitable, it's not transparent. The next cycle is our opportunity to fix the issues that we saw. And by being proactive together as a unified front, we increase the effectiveness of our advocacy. And then to briefly touch on other areas that I know are important to this council that we are strongly aligned on, we are the lead representative for cities and conversations in Sacramento on retail theft and Proposition 47 reform. Since 2017, we have been supportive of legislative reforms to Prop 47, and now the conversation has finally reached a point where there's a drive to take action, and we're at the tip of the spear on it. Just this month, we submitted arguments to the Supreme Court urging them to reverse the decisions in Martin versus Boise and Johnson versus Grants Pass to enable cities to pass anti-camping ordinances for public property. We are the lead organizer for city input regarding a water conservation rulemaking that MODOC estimates would cost the city $23 million over 11 years. Your public works staff has been involved in our efforts to make this more workable, and this is an ongoing rulemaking process. And we have spent the last few years making advanced clean fleet regulations from CARB more workable for cities, securing exemptions and extensions, and warning the state about how expensive vehicle electrification will be. I mentioned earlier that the city is heavily involved in Cal Cities. Councilmember Grant is a crucial voice, not just on our division board, but also on the policy committee that is going to be steering our sober living facility bills. We have in-person meetings coming up, in fact, this very next week. She will have the opportunity to get more cities involved and engaged from across the state and get them on board with these proposals and understand why it's important that the statewide organizations, statewide cities back them. City Clerk Brown is in leadership for our City Clerk's Department. Fire Chief Boyles is former leadership and still actively engaged in our Fire Chief's Department. Battalion Chief Brian McDonough serves on the Revenue and Taxation Policy Committee. This is only scratching the surface of the city's involvement, but I mean it when I say that the City of Newport Beach is utilizing its membership more than most cities do. And lastly, this is in the value report that I mentioned. It was mentioned at the last study session as well. But the rate of return on investment for the past 6 fiscal years is $449 per dollar invested. We continue to fight to protect your city's revenues and services. And lastly, I'm available for any questions. President Goodman and I are here. But I thank you for the opportunity to present, the opportunity for to speak in your consideration, and I really do hope that Newport Beach will remain an integral part of Cal Cities moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Any other public comment on this one? All right, we'll bring it back. Does anyone want to start on their thought process?
I'll tee it up.
Councilmember Wagon.
Yeah, thank you, Connor, for coming out today. I kind of kept quiet on this item when we discussed it last time. I do carry a lot of the sentiment that the mayor and a couple of my colleagues had brought up related to, ACA 1, ACA 13, Prop 1, Taxpayer Protection Act. And look, we're in the state of California, so we can take our ball and go home. But that means we don't get a seat at the table, and we don't get an ability to shape any of those policy discussions. $25,000 really isn't that much for, especially some of the stuff that Connor had mentioned, the return on investment. We get amicus briefs on certain items supporting us when we sit in some of those discussions where we have to ask for support. We can always go to the league and ask for them. We don't always get them, but when we do, it's a big leveraged a bit of assistance. Staff trainings, as we saw, our city manager, our city attorneys, our fire chief, what I saw in the planning commission was every year we would get a whole bunch of new updates from the legislative package that came out of Sacramento. Thousands of bills are introduced every year by, I forget what the number is now, but they get thousands of them across the desk, and a lot of them get approved. So every year our city has to look and analyze what each one of those bills do for us as a city. And the league helps, I think, provide a lot of data for our staff to understand and see how it will affect us locally. We have a council member who sits on our Orange County division. That is a beneficial tool in shaping those policy discussions. And we're Orange County, we have a little different language and speak and philosophical values than the rest of the state, but we just saw Connor say over 400 cities are in this league, so we don't always get a say, but again, having a seat at the table is pretty important. Having the legislative support, when we have legislators locally who present bills, having the league sign on to them gives us a greater chance of getting them passed. We have legislators that don't always align with the majority party, so when we have the league saying we support this, it gets a little more traction. So yeah, it's easy for us to say let's pull the plug because there are certain things that we don't agree with, and I certainly am one of those persons who is upset at some of the rhetoric that the league has, and I think it's frustrating for us to see, but I think there's a greater investment here for a very minimal cost that the city puts into it. So I'll be supportive of the city's contribution of staying a member. I think there was a little bit of a message that we were able to generate out of our discussions to say, hey, we're not satisfied with a lot of that, but we do recognize that there's value. So I will be supporting this item.
Got it. I'm sure others will want to speak. I've been wrestling with this one. And generally speaking, I think I've been of two minds. On the plus side, I really like our Orange County folks. I like our board. I know a lot of the members there. I like our local rep, Connor. I like our city's rep, obviously. I like our staff's leadership, and I've been appreciating the advocacy efforts on some of it, and that's where I'm. And then on the negative side, obviously, we talked about it at the last one, and yeah, I mean, so Councilmember Wagon and I had signed on to an amicus brief to try to make sure the Taxpayer Protection Act ends up in front of voters instead of getting knocked off by the governor and our state legislature trying to make sure it doesn't see the light of day. and having the league call efforts like ours deceptive and a whole bunch of other phrases is obviously beyond disappointing. The thing it just keeps coming back on this one is the Prop 1 issue. The reason that it's been so hard to stomach and accept as we're working this through is because the League of Cities knew that Prop 1 was bad. They knew that it was bad for cities, and the reason I know they knew it was bad for cities is because back in December, when they issued out their a press release, December 6th of 23, saying Cal City's board votes to support 2 ballot measures. One of them, they noted as part of it, it says Cal City's maintained a support position on both measures for most of the year. However, last minute changes to AB 531, taken just 1 week before the end of the legislative session, generated concerns among cities. As a result, Cal Cities withdrew its support. These amendments, the ones that convinced them to at least initially withdraw support, would allow for by right approvals of unlocked and locked behavioral health facilities, sober living homes, and recovery housing. While existing law generally requires by right approval of these facilities in residential areas, Proposition 1 would also apply this approval process to office, retail, and parking zones. And after withdrawing support, the Cal Cities Board then decided to override that. So the Executive Board, which we do not sit on, Cal Cities Board directed staff to engage in the regulatory process and pursue legislation to address these concerns while also supporting Prop 1. Down in Mission Viejo, when they were looking at what to do, they had hired Townsend Public Affairs to take a look at it. And the conclusion from Townsend was similar to what the Cal Cities position had been, which is Proposition 1 allows for a by right streamlined approval process for developments funded by the bond. Developments that fall into this category of behavioral health treatment residential setting, including children's residential crisis programs, peer respite, children's and adult substance use disorder residential programs, recovery housing, short-term residential therapeutic programs, etc., will be eligible for a by right streamlining and are exempt from CEQA on residential office, parking, and retail sites. They're going to be receiving funding from this bond, this multi-billion-dollar bond, to do all of this. Every time for 8 years when we've been trying to work through this issue, we haven't gotten anywhere near the amount of regulatory help to try to rein this in. And now we've got a proposition that is passing by like 29,000 votes as of right now, out of millions of ballots cast. Literally any position that could have been not just support, but opposed to this would have been helpful for cities like ours throughout the state dealing with this issue. Every time Lauren and I go to Corona Del Mar Residents Association, this issue comes up. Every time we go out into a bunch of other areas of our city, this issue comes up. And it's unfathomable to me that when Cal Cities knew that this was going to be harmful to a city like ours, they still stood up and said, we're going to support it. It actively harmed a city like ours, and there are a lot of cities like us on this one. And it's so hard to want to be a part of an organization that's supposed to be advocating for us and did the exact opposite in such a high-profile way. So, in like the pro and con of all of this, in all of it, I just can't support spending more taxpayer dollars to send it to an organization that hurt us this badly. And maybe we just take a year off and maybe we see what it looks like next year, and hopefully all of the legislation they're advocating for to help alleviate the position that they took will pan out. And maybe at that point we say, yep, all right, let's go back in. I'm there, I'm at a breaking point on this one, and it took me a while to get there, but the more I dug in on it, the less I could stomach it. So that's where I've gotten to, and it's not without a lot of consternation, but it's really, that's where I ended up. Councilmember Grant.
Thank you. So I agree wholeheartedly with the points that have been made by Councilmember Weigand and Mayor O'Neill that we have suffered a serious disappointment in the organization, especially in the last 6 months or so of advocating for Cal Cities, of Cal Cities advocating for cities. There's no doubt about that. We can go on and on about, what that is. I think the mayor has very adequately described the problem, so belaboring that is not really necessary. I just want us to just take a deep breath and take a look at the balance of this, because there are pros to the organization that, while they don't negate the issues that we've had, certainly weigh heavily in favor of us considering staying with the organization. One of the things I would mention is that as an individual city, we do not have a lot of bargaining power necessarily. We do have a certain amount because we are a strong city and we're an important city in the state. But when you add our strength to the coastal cities, I'm going to just focus on them because many of them have the same issues that we have. That in and of itself is a very strong reason for us to continue with the Orange County Division of Cal Cities. I sat in a lot of meetings over the last number of months that I've been on the district board, and I would say that many times other representatives, especially that are outside of the coastal cities, weren't even aware of the issues that we're facing. So even that little piece of it, the communication of what is really happening here in Orange County, and especially for the coastal cities, and being able to communicate that to other municipalities is very important. If we don't say something, if we don't have an outlet to remind the other cities of really what our needs are here and why they're important for the state, for our residents, but also statewide, then there's no voice to say that at all. So if all of the cities that are similarly situated were to pull out of Cal Cities, there would be no other voice. I acknowledge that this is sort of a Sacramento down organization, and we do battle that, but it's important for us to have a strong voice here to send up to Sacramento to let them know. It's not always going to work in our favor. There's going to be many times, probably again, that we have issues that we do not agree with the majority of cities in the state, but at least we are speaking about that at every level. And if we aren't doing that from the council side, from the city manager side, city clerk, from our public safety people, if everybody just opts out, then, I don't think we're in a better position. So I am supportive of staying with the organization. I don't think sending a message for 1 year is a good idea. If we're pulling out, that it sends a message for sure. But in balance, I don't think it's the right message to be sending. So I appreciate you being here, Connor. You've been a great addition. Certainly the organization has benefited greatly from your guidance. And Marshall, again, you are a wonderful advocate for the cities in your role. And we do appreciate you coming to the council last time and this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Avery.
I'm kind of a process guy, and I think Cal Cities does a really good job with everything they do, and I think it's so important for all the cities in California to have an organization like that to look to get help from and to learn from. And it's sort of like it's a fabric of all these cities connected to the league, and I hate to see us move away from that even for a year. It just sends a message, but I think that message that it sends is how impacted we've been by the state, and it hurts, and it's been going on a long time, and we've just seen this increase and of the impacts and the state's inability to really manage this stuff like they should be doing. And I don't have to point out, we have some pretty bad examples of operators, just kind of operating, going rogue almost, not having what they should be having. Because these are, and it's not only just for our residents, but it's for the people that are in these institutions, these programs. If they're not cared for, they're going to have bad outcomes, and we've seen that happen. So I am torn like the mayor is. I'm a little bit on the other side, but I'm inclined to step aside for a year and just communicate, at the risk of us looking petulant to a bunch of other cities, just the gravity that our residents, and that's what informs all of us, at least, and it informs me certainly, that, if you are in a neighborhood with, the group homes and they're not being well managed, it's awful. It's something that just should not happen to anybody, any family in this town and that's got kids and they're managing it. It's hard on our law enforcement, when there's these issues. And so I'll be supporting the mayor's side of this because he's really laid it out there. And I have several friends in the league, and it's not an easy thing for me to do, but from the very beginning, my whole thing has been, and it's not just me exclusively, we need to do whatever we can to protect residents and to give them the quality of life they should have, where they feel safe in their homes. That's the number one thing. And we've just got to get a handle on this. And the state's just so disengaged, in my view, or it doesn't have the resources to really, stand up to operators that are not doing what they should be doing in a business, unfortunately, that's run sometimes, by their budget and by, a profit motive that perhaps is not in the best interest of everybody in terms of, adequately staffing and running a good operation. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kleiman.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you so much, Connor, for your presentation, for all your outreach, all the information that I know you've provided to me upon my request. Thank you to Councilmember Grant for her advocacy and in making the arguments on our behalf when all of this was happening in the last few months. As it relates to RENA, I understand that the organization is supporting legislation to encourage reform of the RENA process going forward. What I was asking about is what actions were taken to oppose the flawed assumptions when the allocations were assigned. I sit on the board of OCOG, and we initiated a lawsuit as well as an appeal to assert and preserve our objections. This, in my opinion, is material advocacy. For Prop 1, again, at the risk of repeating what some of my colleagues have already said, since the governor's first announcement of Prop 1, we've been told that it was a foregone conclusion that the measure would pass. We now have the ability to see the votes are coming in. What's clear is that the voters in this county are strongly opposed to the measure. I think it's still close, maybe too close to call. Maybe you're all ready to call it, but this tells me that opposition of a group like yours could definitely have had an influence on the outcome and could have potentially been the difference. And as I said in our last study session, this has the potential to have tremendous effect on this city when we're already suffering the existing impacts from being a primary target market to a lucrative and unregulated industry. So for me, if the agency isn't going to take actions in support of their own mission statement, I'm just not sure how we can rely on them to responsibly utilize our dues to represent Newport Beach in furtherance of our need to reinstate local control. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't have a lot to add. I would just say, Connor, thank you for all your service and what you continue to do. I wish more of California was like the Orange County chapter, clearly. I like our representation. I'm just having a real hard time given that Prop 1 is going to look like it's going to barely pass. I wonder if the organization took a different pass. I'm not a single issue guy, but there's no doubt that mental health facilities and residents in neighborhoods on my side of town is one of the biggest threats to quality of life.
And I'm very disappointed, and I think a year off or more sends the message I'd like to send. It's not about packing up our toys and leaving the sandbox, but it's more about, enough is enough. This is going to be a huge threat to quality of life for residents, and using taxpayer dollars seems to be a big problem to me. But thank you for your time.
Councilmember Weigand.
Yeah, mine is just for staff. I can kind of read the tea leaves here on the way that the vote probably will go down. Councilmember Grant is a member of League for our Orange County cities representing District 5. We don't renew, I guess, when her seat becomes a vacant, I guess, at that, maybe Connor knows. And then my other is, if maybe the maker of the motion, if it's successful, would allow us to come back in a year from now to discuss it again, so it doesn't just disappear into being, lost in forever. So it comes back a year from now to say we would consider, similar to what we have tonight before us, would we want to join and would not?
Yeah, I think the anticipated maker of the motion will not make a forever motion, I promise.
I think I would have to defer to Connor. I would think Councilmember Grant would have to step down.
It would be effective immediately, all positions that any staff or council member has for Cal Cities.
And certainly if it was something that the council would want to consider again, this has typically just been renewed, at the administrative level, but it could come back in the next year, perhaps to council, if council wanted to consider again.
Yeah. All right. I'm looking at staff's recommendation. I'm going to make it the recommendation of A and B to not renew. And I'm not putting any kind of limitation on bringing this back at any point. So I would expect that this would probably come back in January or February of 2025. But at this time, for 2024 at least, I'm going to make the motion to A and B. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Blom.
And then, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to state for the record that my opposition to that has no bearing on Proposition 1, any of those discussions. As you know, on this council, I and Councilmember Kleiman led the effort to get us to oppose that. But my feelings are more of a regional and greater scope than just Prop 1, so thank you.
No, I respect that. I think everyone up here.
I just got to say for the record, because it kind of shifted into the Prop 1, and I don't want that to be the reason why I'm seen as somebody who's opposing this and wanting to stay in the league.
Yeah, no one is thinking that you supported Prop 1 on this one, I promise. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and take a vote.
I'm not sure we had a general public comment on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm pretty confident I did, but I'll open it back up. Do we have any public comment on this item? No. Okay, we'll bring it back up.
With council members Weigand and Grant voting no, the motion carries 5-2.
Thank you very much. All right, Madam Clerk.
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the city council, either this meeting or the previous meeting, may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
All right, do we have any motions for reconsideration? All right, seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.